Hickok 45 here with a big, powerful gun. You caliber warriors. I've got a 44 Magnum and I can shoot it, right? Sometimes. That's what we're going to talk about. The caliber wars, okay? This is, I don't know, kind of for new shooters, new gun owners, but it's for everybody, okay? I'll probably insult a variety of people, and I don't mean to, okay? I don't know everything, really. And it's an area where hardly anybody, probably nobody, knows everything in terms of the best caliber, what's the most, well, we know something about effective, calibers and that kind of thing, but best caliber, this one's better than that one and all that sort of thing. Better gun, better caliber. A lot of it is so subjective. So I'm going to try to give you my opinions on a great deal. So I'm going to take a few shots, probably, not a lot of shots. I want to make the point about the caliber wars. I've talked about this from time to time, maybe, and a lot of people do. And I'm thinking, like 70% of this, I'm thinking about people who have just bought a gun, or you're looking for a firearm and maybe a second firearm, and you're prowling around the YouTube or the forums, and you're seeing all these comments about, oh, I wouldn't carry a 380, or you need a 44, or you need a 45, or you need a 357 SIG. That's the ultimate caliber, or 10 millimeter, or you've got a 10 millimeter, but you're carrying weak ammo in it. You got the wrong ammo, and a 45 is okay, but you need a 45 super, and so there's no end to it, right? There's no end to it. And it can be very confusing for any of us, and especially someone who's, I don't know, relatively new to firearms, or just been into it for a few years, because it does sound logical that bigger is better, more powerful is better. And of course it is, all else being equal, right? I mean, I can't argue with that. Depending on what you're doing, if you're hunting, if it's a self-defense firearm situation, who's going to argue, well, you're really better off with a 22 short. You don't want that 10 millimeter, right? So if you knew they were going to come and get you today at noon, okay, the whoever the attackers are, they were coming after you big time and armed, would you pick a 380 to fend them off? Probably not, right? A little pocket gun. Maybe you wouldn't even pick a Glock 19. I would not, as much as I like a Glock 19. You know what I would pick? I would choose a 44 Magnum or a 10 millimeter or a shotgun full of buckshot and slugs if I knew that I was going to have to defend my life today. We all would. We'd pick the biggest, most powerful thing we could possibly control, right? That just makes sense. Now, we get into the real world, though. We're talking handguns. The real world, where we want to have maybe a firearm handy or on our person. And this is where people in Europe and around the planet, go crazy. I see the comments, occasionally. Well, but I don't live in a country where you have to have a gun. We don't have to have, okay, yeah, I understand. Be happy you're not here then, okay? We don't mind it. We like it here. But, so we're talking about a defensive situation where, as in this country, most people qualify for a carry permit. Lots of you have them I'm talking to, and you're thinking about getting them. You new gun owners, you're thinking about a carry permit. You're already in process of trying to get one. Well, all these questions hit you the hardest probably, because especially if you're going to carry the firearm, you want something that's, the reason you're carrying it is in case you ever have to defend your life, your family's life, right? Those you love. So you want it to work. It's that simple. So you go onto a forum or you see a video and someone's talking about how it's not a 45, you're basically unarmed. Why are you carrying anything less than 44 or 45? What's wrong with you? So one of my messages is, especially new people, new shooters, new gun owners, try to filter through all that and don't let it, don't get obsessed about that, about the caliber. I don't know which one's the best. I do know from the research there's not a lot of difference in standard handgun calibers and cartridges. There's not a lot of difference in terms of what it does in terms of stopping somebody that's trying to kill you. Okay? I don't talk about this stuff much, but since we're talking about the caliber and why people want a bigger caliber and these issues, let's talk about it a little bit, okay? It's the kind of thing that, we sane, well, I don't know if I'm sane, but we sensible people, we civilized people. I'm fairly civilized. The last thing we ever want to do is use one of these in self-defense or against anybody, ever. I fired millions of rounds, literally. All at targets. That's all I plan to ever shoot. But you never know. Someone's trying to lob off my head or something. Guess what? I'll use it against them. So anyway, let's talk about it for a little bit. You're not going to use a handgun, and we're talking handguns, in self-defense. Let's look at this P365. You're not going to use this firearm in self-defense unless somebody is really trying to do you in, right? Great bodily harm. That's what's happening, okay? You're not going to shoot. It's just that simple. So you do want it to work when you have to use it. However, this is not the movies. It's not Hollywood. Handguns are not that powerful for you new gun owners, especially. You may not realize a rifle, or a shotgun is like 1,000 times better than any handgun because of the difference in velocity. All right. So all you're going to do, generally speaking, with a handgun is to, if you ever had to use it in defense, is to get somebody to bleeding, basically, poking holes in them. That's it, unless you hit the central nervous system, brain, spine, Again, kind of gross to talk about, but unless you hit the central nervous system, you're just talking about hopefully bleeding them out in time to stop their aggression, right? Just like if a big grizz is charging you, you're not going to bleed him out before he gets to you, okay? You got to get a brain shot. That's what they go for, a headshot on a grizz. So that's kind of what you're dealing with. Recently, I remember, I think it was Reed Hendricks, Valor Ridge, saying that you think of a handgun bullet as a drill, as a little drill bit, a long drill bit. You're just drilling holes through whatever you shoot. And again, we're talking a defensive situation, and you're just going to create a bleeding situation unless you hit the central nervous system with that little drill, right? So if you think of it that way, I think it kind of helps too. This is a 44 Magnum, and I'm going to shoot it, all right? Now, it's a really powerful firearm, but in context of what I've been saying, it's not necessarily a stopper, an automatic stopper, just because it hits somebody. It's got to hit the central nervous system, generally speaking, to stop. Like that plate. Well, I missed it. Ouch. Boom. That bowling pin, let's hit that pig. That's a big gun. Has a lot of recoil, a lot of power, and you'd feel really well armed with it, right? But again, it's mainly going to set somebody to bleeding, all right? Unless you hit the central nervous system. So I say all of that mainly to just emphasize the fact that this 9mm that this shoots, much less recoil, much smaller, much lighter. You're much more likely to have it with you, and when you go to shoot it, it's going to be easier to fire, right? Boom. And very convenient, a very good bullet, but it's a lot smaller. Well, I don't have one now. Well, here's a 380, about the same. And, you got a smaller situation, essentially the same base, 44. But you're drilling holes. You're not shooting a 308, a 30-06, and it's not as much different, I guess, is the bottom line, as we like to think, maybe, okay? There's an unlimited numbers of stories where some attacker has been even hit with slugs, 44s and 45s and 4 and 5 and 8 shots and hits, and they still continue whatever they're doing. Often they're on drugs or something, but those stories abound. Okay, so you just can't rely on that. So my point is basically, I want to, I guess, kind of assuage your fears, your nervousness for not packing a 45 or a 44 or a 10 millimeter. All right, because there's not as much difference as we like to think there is in a real world situation. Okay, now there is a difference. I love those guns. I shoot them a lot, and I can handle them well. I can pick up this 10. It's a powerful firearm, but I can shoot. I can hit. I can hit what I need to hit. I can shoot it just fine. And it does offer more power. But so why don't I carry that? Why is that not my carry gun? Why am I probably not going to have a 10 if I'm at the grocery tomorrow and taking my chances with the virus and somebody attacks me? Why am I probably going to have this 9 or 380, who knows, 38 special, 9 millimeter? If I can shoot that fairly well, why wouldn't I have it? And that's the second part. Bottom line, kind of. It's big. It's heavy. I'm more likely to not have it with me all the time if this is my carry gun. I'm more likely to leave it in the car. It's not. So a lot of people who brag about, I don't carry anything but a 45. I'm Mr. Macho. Carry a 10, nothing else, man. Hottest ammo I can get for it. And there's some truth. Some people do that, and they have it all 24/7. But lots of times they might carry a 10, but it's not as likely to be with them 24/7, really. And they got those shorts and a t-shirt on, maybe, maybe not. So a lot of people, I've always maintained a little, I don't have my 642 out here. This is a small, of course, little revolver. There's a lot of people carrying this, or even this 380. That's their carry gun, the little LCP. And they are better armed than the person carrying this 44 Magnum or this 10 millimeter. Why? Because they're more likely to have it with them all the time when something comes up. They're much more likely to have it. So I contend that rather than make fun of people for carrying a 380 like this, they very well might be better armed, during the month of July or whatever, over a period of time, because they've got it with them all the time. Okay, whereas this, it's I carry that when I'm wearing such and such, or no, leaving the car, and it's just kind of big to have on me. Yeah, it's hard to conceal, gets kind of heavy. Yeah, so that's just the reality of it. Don't let people bully you into carrying a bigger gun, even a bigger caliber than you need. Okay, I try to think I overthink things, I guess. I always think about, okay, well, for one thing, how many people, how many citizens, now we're not cops, are we? We're just private citizens with carry permits, as we're mainly talking to. Show me the records. How many private citizens with carry permits that carry were killed last 5 years, were killed in the last 5 years because they were in a shooting, a defensive situation, and they were carrying too small a caliber. Okay, their bullet wasn't powerful enough. There may be one or two, I don't know. I never hear about that. I mean, how many literally? There was a shooting down at the market last night. You hear about it? A bad guy tried to assault some woman or a guy there checking out, and he pulled out an LCP or a little 9 millimeter and shot the guy, but the guy was unfazed, and he shot him back with a 45 or something. Or he pulled out a 9 millimeter or a 380, and the guy laughed at him, or something. We just overdo it. I think we overdo it. Of course, bigger is better, more powerful is better, all else being equal, but you're just not likely to have that with you. And then my last point I like to make too is, what kind of enemies do you have anyway? Now, I mean, there's exceptions, and there's always that that outlier, that person's on some kind of weird stuff, and is like a grizzly bear. And it's pretty rare for you and me. I always like to think, okay, if somebody thinks I might be armed, are they going to mess with me? Probably. Okay, there's one level of protection. If they even think first of all, I'm carrying myself like I'm not an easy target. And if they think I might be armed, they're probably going to go somebody else. Okay. If they're sure I'm armed, maybe it's from my dress, maybe they see I have a gun printing or whatever. They just know I'm someone who's always armed. They going to come after me? Do you have enemies like that? Do you have people who, even though you're armed and they know you're armed, they're going to come after you anyway? What are you involved in? Drug dealing or something? So the average person just having a gun, and then the next level might be if there is some kind of threat, and you warn the person, hey, I don't want any trouble here. I don't want any trouble from you, whatever it is. I'm not a trainer. They have good advice on what to say and how to do all that. Okay, I'm not pretending to be Clint Smith or anybody. He's a lot more handsome than I am, right? And intelligent and everything. But and if I seem to have a gun and they continue, what do I have that's that important to them? I mean, is that really going to happen? And then what if I actually had to pull it, and present it, because it's a serious threat, and it looks like I'm going to shoot this dude if he keeps coming after me with that baseball bat or that knife or whatever it is. Is he going to continue? What have I done that he's going to walk into potential gunfire? And then what if I do have to come up and it's shoot time? What's he going to do? Continue? And then say, well, he's only got a 9mm. He's got a .380. I can take a few of those bullets before I get to him. I'll still get his wallet. I try to use that kind of thing. I know it's not accurate for any situation that might come up, but just generally speaking, you and I, as just armed citizens, the number one factor is just being aware of our surroundings, right? Staying out of these places where that might even happen. Could happen anywhere. Being aware, being ready, being proficient with our firearm, knowing the law, knowing you can't brandish a weapon and threaten people and all that kind of thing. But, it's just, who's going to come after you? They know you're armed and you're willing to use it. And you're really ready to use it. You have used it. I mean, they're going to continue. So we have this Hollywood vision of people, he's coming at me, and good thing I got a 45. Yeah, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, I got him stopped. Mostly Hollywood or grizzly bear attack kind of stuff, So anyway, and I don't mean to discount you folks carrying a 45 or a 10mm, whatever it is. I've been known to carry them myself. But I worry sometimes about people who are not very proficient with firearms yet getting into a caliber or a power factor with a firearm that they really don't handle well. And that's another thing. Like I say, you're better armed with that if you've got it 24/7, even though it's a small gun on the table. You're also better armed with that or this 9mm if you shoot it better than this 10mm. Recoil affects everybody. Knowing the recoil's coming, the flinch and all that. 44 Magnum. It doesn't help to have a 44 Magnum if, when you shoot a gun, it just boom, it takes you a second or two to recover for maybe another shot. So you haven't really gained anything. Whereas if you can pick up a 9mm, this has got factory ammo in it, HST, you can pick it up, you can pick your shots. And you can put several shots on target without any trouble. You're more likely to, that drill bit analogy I was using that I stole from somebody else, Reed Hendricks, I think he might have got from somebody, I don't know, but you're more likely to get the drill bit into the right place, whereas that you may get 2 44 Magnum shots off and, boom, in the arm or in the leg or whatever. And again, I don't mean to get gross, because none of us wants to ever be in a situation like that at all. But still, it's why we carry, right? It's why we have a carry permit. I do consider my life more important than that bad guy's life, I will say, okay? So I would have no qualms about defending myself, for my family or for my cats, maybe even, who knows? That's a stretch, right? So I'll sum it up. You don't necessarily need the hottest, biggest caliber out there. Jim Cirillo, you might have read about him. He's gone now, but he was on the New York City stakeout squad back in I guess it was the 70s, 60s, 70s, and they had a big problem with markets being robbed, armed robberies, like every night over and over, and they would stake out those places, and he was actually in like more shootings like of that type than I think almost any man alive, and he put down a lot of bad guys, and I don't think he ever got hit. I mean, it was just really the real deal. The elephant went up. They came in, these guys pulled guns on the clerks and everything, and those guys would come out of the back room, and it was gunfire city, going both ways. And he won, essentially, all those gunfights, he and his partner. And he was a good shot. And guess what he was carrying? I think through all of those, I think it was a Model 10 or a Model 19, Smith & Wesson. He carried 38 special round-nosed lead bullets. That's what he carried, And so, which is probably weaker than even a 9mm, essentially a hardball kind of thing, except for lead bullets, I think. Now, correct me if you know a little bit more about it. I've read several articles about it, but that's basically what he was carrying because he could shoot and he kept us cool. And it was a little different. He was a cop and he was going on the aggression, in a way. It was defensive. That's been how you look at it. Okay, but he handled those situations with a 38. And so if you love a 45 like I do, or a 44, and you can carry it and you can shoot it, I think you ought to. Really, it's a why not. But most people are not going to carry a gun that heavy. And this is just 3-inch barrel, but it's heavy. It's a chunk, Big old 1911s, they get kind of heavy, and if you lighten them up with an alloy frame, they're not as heavy, but they still have a fair amount of recoil. Can you shoot it well? Is it reliable? And all those sorts of things. So nothing wrong with that. Again, nothing wrong with that at all. I love this 10mm. I love 45. I love 44. But generally speaking, most people are going to carry a 9mm 380, 38 special, and of various sizes, and you don't want to feel unarmed. You don't want to feel guilty. Don't be made to feel guilty that you're not carrying a bigger caliber or something that'll just, blow my car off the chassis. Okay? All right? You're fine. You're fine. Even with this 380, if you can shoot it well, you're fine. Look, this little thing, I'm going to let you go. This little thing, you know how big my hand is, that little gun? You practice a little bit with that thing, you can actually hit with it. See that? And that's a lot further than probably any defensive situation you'd be in. That feels like it hits pretty hard. That's just a 380. So I'm not recommending any caliber over another one. I'm just saying, feel good about what you got. Learn to shoot it, okay? And that's a big factor. What's the right size for you? How you're going to carry it? You know you'll keep it. It will be there. That's more important than the caliber. The fact that you have it, okay, and that you can shoot it, and that it's reliable. All right. So a lot of preaching at you, and a little bit of ranting. And again, I don't mean to rant against the people that are carrying bigger calibers. If you see them on the internet, some of them just get a little obnoxious about it. Most of them don't. They're like me. I like that stuff too. But I don't go around making people feel guilty for carrying even a 22. That's all they feel like they can handle. But we get macho cells tied up into it sometimes. And so carry what you want, carry what you can shoot, and just practice when you can, okay? So that's just my advice. Again, I'm not an expert. I'm not a trainer. I'm just a guy who has shot a lot, and I've carried a lot of different firearms, okay? And it's hard to find anybody who has actually had to use all of these calibers in defensive situations enough times that they really have a lot of solid evidence or data that they can be experts. It's just that simple, okay? So be careful who you listen to. In fact, you might not even want to listen to me. Do I look like somebody who is credible? Might want to think about that. So anyway, I hope that was of some help to you, and glad you came by. I talked too long. Life is good.
Oh yeah, that's better. This is a great gun for defense. Oh hey, didn't see you guys there. While I've got you here, I want to remind you of our friends over at Talon Grips and Ballistol. Talon Grips makes grips, can you believe it, for all different types of firearms. You can get rough texture or more of a rubberized texture. It just sticks right on there. You know, really affordable, really cool option to improve the grip for your handguns or rifles. So please check them out at talongungrips.com. You'll be glad you did. And also Ballistol. Dad has been using Ballistol for many years. It's a cleaner and a lubricant, and it's non-toxic. It works really great, and we're happy to have them on board since it's been a part of our shooting endeavor for a very long time. So go to ballistol.com, talongungrips.com. And also, while you're out there, I'm juggling all these things here. Also, while you're on the internet, please do check out our other social media like Hickok45 on Facebook. There's also Hickok45 on Twitter, The Real Hickok45 on Instagram. There's a John_Hickok45 on Instagram where I do some things. There's Hickok45.com. You can find us also on Gunstreamer. So check out all that stuff and then watch more videos.